Right. Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. My name is Ankit Bharat. I'm the Chief of Thoracic Surgery at Northwestern Medicine and the Surgical Director of Lung Transplantation. Joining me is Dr. Rade Tomic, who is our Medical Director of Lung Transplantation, and Dr. Garza, Rafael Garza, who's a thoracic surgeon and assists with some of the donor retrieval for the lung transplant. Dr. Garza can also answer any questions in Spanish if there is a need after that. So first of all, I want to introduce Mr. Renato Aquino. I'm very proud to introduce him. He's the first known patient in the United States to receive a COVID to COVID double lung transplant at Northwestern Medicine. Renato is joined by his niece, Tasha. Thank you, Tasha, for coming, who has been his primary caretaker during this whole year-long recovery process from COVID-19. Exactly one year ago today, on May 14, 2020, Renato drove himself to the emergency room department with shortness of breath due to COVID-19. He was otherwise healthy, no underlying conditions, and then just developed these symptoms all of a sudden. The 65-year-old who was born and raised in Philippines, he moved to Illinois more than 30 years ago for a career in medicine. He was serving on the front lines as a phlebotomist, drawing blood work for patients who were critically ill from COVID-19. Renato, as I mentioned, was a healthy guy with no underlying conditions, but his COVID-19 symptoms started with fever and quickly got worse. On May 14th, he called his niece and told her that he just could not breathe. From that day onwards, his life completely changed due to that whole year-long recovery process. When Renato came to the emergency room, he was quickly placed on a ventilator, and he was given a lot of the established treatments at that point, including convalescent plasma, as well as ECMO, which is the highest level of heart and lung support that we can provide to patients with failing lungs. After 2 months of ECMO support, he was taken off, but he could not be separated from the ventilator as his lungs struggled to recover. On multiple occasions, Renato's family was told to say their final goodbyes and to start making funeral arrangements. But interestingly, that's when Tasha, Renato's niece, saw a story on the news about COVID lung transplant that we had performed at Northwestern Medicine. She mentioned that story to Renato's doctors at the local hospital, and they then called our lung transplant program to inquire if Renato may be a good candidate for transplant. By February of this year, then, Renato was transferred to Northwestern Medicine, and after spending 1 week on the transplant wait list, we received a call that lungs were available from a donor who previously had a mild to moderate COVID, but that donor's death was unrelated to COVID. Renato was running out of options and running out of time, so we knew that this was probably his only and last option. We knew that a COVID to COVID lung transplant could possibly help him. So on February 25th, Renato received beautiful, healthy lungs, marking a new milestone for lung transplantation with this COVID to COVID lung transplant. So now, with that, I would like to ask Dr. Garza to explain some of the tests and our strategy we adopted to ensure that the donor had cleared the virus and Mr. Renato would be okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rafael Garza Castillon. I'm a thoracic surgeon at Northwestern Medicine, and I assisted with the COVID to COVID lung transplant. Before accepting the lungs from Mr. Aquino, we had to confirm several things. We had to make sure the donor's COVID history is not severe COVID, meaning there was no need for oxygen or no hospitalization. We also had to make sure that there were negative direct samples from the airways for COVID, as well as swabs. And the CT scan, we carefully reviewed that CT scan, made sure there was no evidence of permanent damage there. Once we arrived at the donor hospital, we inspected the lungs directly and as well as the airways. And we also took lung biopsies and make sure there was no scarring on pathology there. So once we confirmed there was no lung damage, we felt confident in the quality of the donor lungs. Using sophisticated homegrown techniques at Northwestern Medicine Research Laboratories, it was confirmed that the virus had been eradicated from the donor lungs and the lung framework and architecture were normal. By carefully assessing these donor lungs and when specific criteria are met, we think lungs can be used from those with a history of non-severe forms of COVID-19. This is important because there's already a large supply and demand gap for organ donors. As well as there's an increase for donor lungs now with the COVID pandemic, a demand for donor lungs. So we need to get creative and we need to maximize our donor pool. More than 32 million Americans to date have had contracted COVID-19 and many are registered donors. So we should not immediately disregard those who had mild cases and had fully recovered from the virus. Currently, many transplant centers are concerned about the risk of transmission of COVID-19 from a donor to recipient. Mr. Aquino's story clarifies the safety of the use of these donors. Thank you.
What's that? Yeah. Let's wait for the, right. Well, thank you, Dr. Garza. So till date, Northwestern Lung Transplant Program has performed 20 double lung transplants on COVID-19 survivors, the most most performed at any hospital in the world with 100% success. Mr. Renato was officially discharged from the hospital on May 5th and returned to his home in Glendale Heights, Illinois. There's no evidence of reactivation of COVID-19 in his lungs, and he's on track, as you can see, for a full recovery. Renato can't wait to watch Chicago White Sox, right? Baseball games again and spend time with his family and friends. We hear he's quite good at singing karaoke also, something he wants to get back to.
Why?
So I would like to ask. I would like to ask Renato to share his thoughts on how he feels and how he feels to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Can I speak it down?
Yeah, I think it's on. You can take your mask off if you want.
It's on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Renato Aquino. Here I am speaking to you guys, and I don't know if I will say thank you for Northwestern Medicine. I know thanks is not enough. The way they did it to me, that here I am speaking to you guys how what it did to me, giving me a second chance to live. For so many months that I'm in the hospital, Northwestern Medicine from our team did it well and give me a second chance to live and function well. And hopefully I'm gonna go back where I went before. So I need to thanks the pulmonary team, the medical staffs, and everybody down here. Not only the nurses, PCTs, and also the self-reliant ability to love also. I know thank you is not enough. Later, here I am. Hopefully they can accept the way I said. So hopefully they will, I'm not gonna feel them. I need to determine that what they did to me is highly recommended to you guys. So say thank you. Thanks a lot.
Tasha, did you want to say something about the journey and?
I just want to say that, if it weren't for me looking up and seeing the first Myra, actually, her story, my uncle will not be here today. And I'm very thankful for them for taking him on, because I know he was like a little older than, the rest of the other patients. But, with my uncle's determination and their hard work, he's here with us today. So for that, I'm very thankful.
Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions.
Renato, can we ask, how do you feel today?
Oh, I feel wonderful. I cannot say more, but here I am in front of you guys, so you can tell the way they did Northwestern medicine. So, what can I say? So, here I am. Thank you. I'm alive.
What does it mean to you? Because we're looking at these wonderful pictures, you're singing karaoke, you're singing land,
You
you're
keep
in
saying
pajamas with your family. Like, what's this mean to you that you have now this chance of life thanks to these doctors that are sitting right here?
Oh, you got no idea how I feel right now, being given a second chance to live. I know all I can say is thank you. I'm moving forward to normal life and given a second chance and the lungs given. And they did well. So I don't want to feel anybody from them here. My doctor. So I that's all I can say, but
Puede decir la misma cosa en español.
what's that?
Puede decir la misma cosa en español.
I'm a Philippine. I know. We're under the Spaniards, but
I don't speak Spanish.
it's not the same as South America that we're being taught how to speak, but some part of Philippines still speak Spanish. Until Americans take over the Philippines, they are more like giving us more communication instead of Spanish. So,
Dr. Garza can answer questions.
Yeah, I think sure. Sure, yeah.
Si puedo contestar preguntas en español.
Tell me why it's safe to use COVID tissue and why you weren't concerned about cross-infection from one patient to another.
Okay, you want that in Spanish, right? In English? Okay. So as I mentioned, we have very specific criteria for that. We go over the donor history, make sure there wasn't a severe COVID infection, make sure the donor was not on oxygen when he or she got COVID, was not hospitalized. We take two types of samples. We take nasal swabs and also direct samples from the airways, and we test it for COVID and make sure that's negative. So the donor has to clear the virus before we consider for donation. And the third thing, we go over the CT scan, the imaging studies, and make sure there's no signs of permanent damage or fibrosis on those CT scans. Other things we do, once we arrive at the donor hospital, we take a look directly at the lungs and at the airways, make sure they look, pink, there's no scarring, no fibrosis. And also we take samples directly from the pulmonary veins, make sure the oxygen levels are fine. And thirdly, we take a biopsy of the lungs and we examine it right there in the donor hospital. They can give us a preliminary, diagnosis, say, hey, there's no scarring, these lungs look good. So there's specific criteria have to be met in order for us to use them for donation. Yeah. Entonces, como estaba mencionando, hay unos criterios muy específicos que se tienen que cumplir antes de considerar unos pulmones de un donador que ha tenido COVID. Principalmente que no tenga una historia de COVID severo, quiere decir que no haya requerido oxígeno en el pasado y que no haya estado hospitalizado, obviamente. También nos aseguramos que tengan pruebas negativas de nasal swabs, de hisopados nasales y también pruebas directas de las vías aéreas y que sean negativos a COVID, que sí que haya eliminado el virus el donador. Y también nos fijamos mucho en la tomografía, en los estudios de imagen, estar seguros que no hay cicatrización en esos pulmones. Además que cuando vamos al hospital donde está el donador, podemos ver los pulmones y las vías aéreas directamente, ver que se vean rosas los pulmones, que sean sanos, y tomamos biopsias también y confirmamos que sean sanos los pulmones. Entonces tienen que cubrir todos estos requisitos para poder considerar estos donadores.
Mr. Aquino, I was reading the press release that on multiple occasions your family was told to say the final goodbyes and start making funeral arrangements. How do you feel about this?
You know, they just told me about it, but for so many months, I got no idea. But they're thinking I'm only gonna survive. But because of that, now where it's service. They already made an arrest, but I felt sorry for them, but here I am. I survived because of this behind me that makes me more second life son.
Sasha, how do you feel when they told you that to make funeral arrangements for those times?
It was so crazy. It's like an emotional roller coaster, I actually went to the funeral. I did all the arrangements. And then the next day he proved us wrong. He wanted to live. So who are we? So every time that we lost hope, he thrives. He really is a fighter. So we're just here to help him and as much as we can. And I mean, look at him now. He's going to be doing karaoke soon. That was my video. I will share it again someday.
So what are your plans after your recovery, Mr. Aquino?
Well, probably I'm going to be a singer. Or American.
Do my American Idol.
Maybe you can see me again. I don't know.
Did you learn anything special by working with Mr. Aquino on this case? What kind of skills did you develop, and what can other COVID patients benefit from the work you've done here?
Maybe I can start, but Dr. Tomic can add to this. So I wanted to just go back to the one other question that you asked before. So as Dr. Garza mentioned, about 33.5 million cases have been diagnosed in the United States, and every day still we are seeing thousands of cases. Even in the best of situations, there is a big discordance between the demand and supply. I don't know, no one knows where that final number of coronavirus cases is going to end up with, but that's over a tenth of United States population. So if we said no to those patients from being organ donors, that we're just not going to have enough organs to save lives. So lungs tend to be the most common organs that are affected by coronavirus, and that's why there's a lot of hesitation amongst transplanting centers to use lungs from any individual that has had COVID before. What Mr. Aquino's story tells us is that with the right procedures and in place, it's absolutely safe to use those organs. So we should not be automatically declining organs from any patient who's had COVID in the past. If we can ensure that the virus has cleared from the body of the donor, and if we can establish that functionally those lungs would work, we should absolutely accept those organs. So that's the biggest message. You can see him, he had a very quick recovery despite almost a year-long process of being in the hospital, having multiple complications. He's breathing normally, his new lungs are working great, and we anticipate that they're going to continue to work great. So we cannot just, we should not be just declining those organs. I don't know, Dr. Tomic, you want to add any?
I'll be happy to also comment. I think this case showed, and in carefully selected cases, we can expand the pool of the lungs for the patients who are dying from the lung diseases and enable the patients to have a chance of the new life. There is around 150,000 people who are dying every year from COPD in this country, from emphysema. And we do somewhere around 2,800 lung transplants. So there is a great need for the donor lungs. And I think this case can help the other centers to consider to expand the pool and give a patient's chance of the new life. And the second aspect of Mr. Aquino case is Mr. Aquino was for the months on the ventilator, weak, going to the lung transplant, and so far, and we're anticipating this will continue, he had a great recovery. And this is also something which is unique, which we usually don't do the lung transplant in the patients who are weak and for the months on the ventilator. So this way, I think we'll be able to expand the donor pool for the lungs for the patients who are suffering from severe lung diseases. And I think that's a great example in this case.
Professor Rod, what can you tell us about the donor, like everything about the donor? Obviously, this was, I don't know if when you clarified the COVID case, that donor, you say it's mild?
It was mild to moderate. That's the category that the donor would fall into. Had respiratory symptoms that resolved. They were significant enough to be classified anywhere from mild to moderate symptoms.
Can you even give us the age of the second donor?
That is protected information from, we don't have permission to share that, but what I can tell you, all I can tell you was it was a healthy donor, otherwise got COVID, recovered from it recently within the past month, but I'm not at a liberty to share more than that due to donor privacy. What's that? It was a drug overdose, but I cannot specify, more circumstances than that. So.
Question from
Sure.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Mr. Aquino, this is from Stefano Esposito at the Sun Times, and he'd just like you to tell us a bit more about your job, where you were working, and what you were doing in regards to working with COVID patients before you got sick.
Well, I work as a phlebotomist. I got 2 jobs to hospital. I work in a Metro Garza Hospital and advocate ECL Good Samaritan. I don't know if you know where's the place are. ECL advocate is the Downers Grove, and Amita Glenox is the Glendale Heights. So I don't know which one, but well, I'm being phlebotomist, you're being exposed to COVID-19 until I feel really bad at the time. So I cannot determine which one I've been.
Yeah.
Because being to hospital, being a phlebotomist, exposing to those people kind of stuff, even though you're in a proper PPA, that's where we were at. But that's all I can say.
Mr. Aquino, we're working directly with COVID patients?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Being a phlebotomist, yes. It's a direct contact. And there's no choice no matter what. Some are nurses, if they have a big line or central line, well, we don't have to, but not all COVID patients has a central or a big line or arterial line, so we have to take care of them.
When you think back that this is 1 year exactly today, when you were driving to the hospital, driving yourself, just like this last year, how does it make you reflect? What do you think about this whole journey of what you've been through?
The turn is like, I don't know, I totally forget for anything. The only thing I remember is the almost like a month. To be honest with you, the month that I started, I don't even remember what I'm doing. I might, just like hallucinations because of the medicine that they're giving to me. So, and sometimes I remember and some don't. I don't know if it's real because of the of just screaming about it. But here I am, happy to see you. Everybody outside the world. Yeah.
Actually, what would you like to add? I mean, you were there by the side. You planned the funeral. You made the arrangements. I mean, just from 1 year ago today to now.
I don't know. Did I ever imagine we're gonna be here right now? Probably not. It was like, it was so crazy. Yeah, he would not remember anything. He was literally pretty out of it 90% of the time. There was times that I would talk to him and he was like, no, I don't remember any of that. There's all he can remember is driving himself to the ER and, you know, being here in Northwestern. That's it. He's been to so many, like, you know, a couple facilities and hospitals, and none of those he doesn't remember. So it's so crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. So it's a crazy year for sure. Definitely we will remember. I have a lot of pictures that I show him, like, this is what happened to you. And, you know, I just kind of like tell him and like show him the notes. So.
You have a lot of pictures, but when you look at him right here and see him sitting there.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's insane. It makes me like be thankful. You know, God is good. God is good to us. Prayer helps. My 6-year-old prays for him every day, you know, and she is very thankful, and we're the whole family. We're thankful we're here. We're thankful he's here.
So when he first drove to the ER, he was in another hospital, right?
Yes, he was. Because where he lives, he's closer, and where he went to where he worked. So I would love to drive him, but obviously I didn't want to get sick, so he drove himself. But yeah.
You know, I think that just the pictures you did share with us, the hospital share with us, shows just, I don't know, you tell me what he means to the family and Renato as he sits there, because it looks like the funny picture of him making a funny face in the hospital, like all this, he's still found humor in it. I think he's still found a way to smile, it seems like.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's my godfather. That's my mom. He is the kindest man, and nobody ever, I can't speak for other people, but he deserves to be here. He deserves, you know, everything that, you know, he's getting. He is the most wonderful, kind, generous, for sure. So.
Yeah, this is what Tasha told us also. I'll share with you a small vignette. So when I first met Renato, he was one of the grumpiest patients at that time.
Oh.
You know, and I'm talking to Tasha, and she said, well, he's never like that. But this is what a year long of a complex hospital course from COVID can do to you. So she showed us all these pictures about how, he's always the life in the family, life of any party. And it really made us wonder like how dramatically he had changed. So when we saw him after the transplant, finally smiling again and getting his humor back, it was a very, very gratifying feeling for all of us. So, but I can only imagine what there's such a complex hospital course, almost a year-long journey, staying in the hospital would have done. So, but thank you, Tasha, for always advocating for him. You really made the difference.
I just helped. He did a lot of the work. He was he's a fighter. That's what he is. If he wasn't fighting, he wouldn't be here. Right, Uncle?
Yes.
Right? Any other questions from anybody?
If there aren't any more questions, I think we're gonna take a group photo of you with your medical team.
Okay, my name is Ankit Bharat, A as an apple, ANKIT, BHARAT.
I just want, okay, Rafael Garza Castillon, RAFAEL, Garza, GARZA, hyphen Castillon, CASTILLON.
And my name is Rade Tomic, RADETOMIC. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Can you pick up the other side of that table?
Yeah.
You guys.